Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Eye Sports Podcast on USBN Sports. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, I want to tell you something. You and I are fortunate to see some great athletes in Anderson High School. And I tell you what, this guy, our next guest, Joe Datin, that we had was, I think, hands down the best athlete at Anderson High School. I mean, I just all the sports that he played. But I'm just so excited that we're having Joe on here tonight.
Danny, you took the words right out of my mouth because without a doubt, and you can poll anybody, this guy right here we're talking to, and we've both been around a long time, is the greatest athlete to ever go through Anderson High School, and I'm not ashamed to say it, and I have proof of it. And, this guy is in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Buddy LaRosa Hall of Fame. He was the most feared player on any field or court, and most competitive. I loved watching him play. And there is hands down, I don't care what anybody says, this is our Michael Jordan right here.
I totally agree. Growing up as a kid, in the eighth grade, watching all these guys playing, like we talked with Fergie last week, that team, I was devastated when those guys lost. And watching Joe and Tim and all them play was just phenomenal. So, Joe, as we said, joining us is our guest here is Joe Datin. And Joe, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here tonight.
Well, guys, I really appreciate the kind words. It's a great opportunity, and certainly I'm honored to participate with you guys.
Well, Joe, let's talk about, like we always do with everybody. Let's go back to your days, and we had a couple in a row that had some Summit Estates people that were growing up in Anderson. Tell everybody where you grew up, what side of Anderson you're at, and just what it was like growing up for you as a kid in Anderson Township.
Yeah, what I remember about those early years was I think Anderson Township as a whole really experienced a tremendous amount of growth. Mm-hmm. Really, there was an abundance of families moving in, and that was great because I think that certainly helped fuel the demand to really ramp up and create a lot of, the youth sports program. So that was great. I grew up over between Salem and Sutton. It was kind of a small neighborhood, certainly not like Summit.
Right.
But it was great because we probably had 10, 12 guys in that subdivision, all about the same age. And, when we weren't in school, I mean, we would be playing pickup baseball games, riding bikes, playing out in the woods.
Right.
I mean, some great memories. And of course, I had two wonderful brothers, great athletes. My older brother, Jim, and my younger brother, Bill. And I mean, we constantly competed with one another, battled with one another. I'm not sure how our folks managed that. And certainly I'll admit I was probably the instigator with all the fights among us, but it's great. Even now when we get together, that level, that competitiveness surfaces. And, I wish my older brother, Jim, would have a little mercy on me on the tennis court. And, I wish I had Bill's length off the tee, but I guess this is the way to pay me back. This is what I have to look forward to, guys.
That's right.
But it's a lot of fun memories for sure growing up.
That's awesome. So, Joe, I want to break it down into the three sports that you excelled at Anderson. And I'm not sure if we mentioned it, Danny, but, you played soccer and basketball and baseball. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you were all state in all three. And if you would have, like today's day and age, Danny, if you concentrate on one sport, you can just imagine,
right,
what Joe could have done with one sport, and he did it with three sports. So it's just an incredible career that Joe had, and just enjoyed so much watching you play. But I want to talk about soccer, Joe, because I think you might have been a part of as a younger guy in high school on the state team that went to the state finals. Is that right?
I was. I was very fortunate because, any time as a freshman entering high school, it can be intimidating, somewhat awkward. And I was fortunate to make the varsity soccer team. I didn't play a handful of minutes the whole season, but I had a first row seat of watching Danny Davis, who I considered the best goalkeeper ever, just to see him command the team. And obviously you had, Bill Harmon, you had so much talent on that team. So on one hand, it was thrilling. On the other hand, it was overwhelming. And I don't know how I made the team, but it was a great experience. And like you said, we went to the state finals. So what a way to start your high school career.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And you were fortunate enough to, I think, play for two coaches, if I'm right, with Morton and
Coach
Phil
Morton.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Coach Morton, I had that one season with. So, I mean, he was a great coach from what I remember. Certainly gave me a great opportunity to make the team as a freshman.
Mhm.
I guess I was more acquainted with Phil Pod, but my sophomore year in soccer was kind of a repeat. Danny was a senior. He was 2 years older than me. So again, my sophomore year, I did a lot of sitting on the bench. But again, I think what was enjoyable was just how much talent was out there in the field. It would have been pretty disappointing to sit there and have the team be 500 or not go to the postseason. So it was a real joy to watch those guys, and the relationships. It was wonderful, really. And then of course I don't know what they called them, the soccer girls or whatever. The older girls that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was wonderful because as a freshman and sophomore, I was like, wow, this is it. This is
Pretty
great.
cool.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a great experience.
I remember those teams, and even up through the years when we were there and your brother Bill played, that there was just so much, so many athletes and big guys on there. And we talked a little bit before we went on the air about, one of the things that I wanted to mention was just imagine like your senior year, especially if you would have played football,
Yeah.
or if any of these other guys would have played football, maybe they would have won more than one game or two, and how the talent was. But I just remember the soccer teams were just so athletic and big and strong, and everybody feared you guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't. Soccer was my least favorite sport. I played goalkeeper. It wasn't really stimulating, other than the occasional corner kick where you could
Right.
go out there and knock around a few people.
Yep.
But it served its purpose, because if I didn't play soccer, I probably would have been playing football. And the way I played back then, who knows what kind of injuries
Right.
you could have. But I always, look back and I wish I would have had an opportunity to put on the shoulder pad. People would say, well, I have no idea what position I would play or if I would make the team. But I guess it would have been nice to try it.
I think you would have made the team, and I think you would have probably kicked. You would have punted. You would have played center. You would have played running back. You would have played, because we were hurting for players. I can tell you that.
Yeah, Joe never would have come off the field.
Yeah, he never would have came off the field.
All right. Well, let's get into the basketball part of it, Joe, because those were the days that, especially for Danny and I, that we circled on the calendars for every one of your games and just couldn't wait to get there. Of course, my mom and dad doing the concession, so I was there early and saving seats for guys because your games are so packed. And your junior and senior year, we've already interviewed Frank and Fergie and Coach Sanders, but what a treat it is to interview you and talk about especially those 2 years of how well you guys did. You won a city championship, you won league titles, which it's only happened 5 times in the history of school, and you were on 2 of them. Which is incredible. So let's talk a little bit about those years and how fun that was with the guys you played with.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Basketball by far was my favorite sport. I just loved the environment. Again, I came from soccer where I was a goalkeeper. So naturally playing basketball, I felt liberated. I had so much energy. But I really go back to my freshman and half of my sophomore year playing for Coach Center.
Mm-hmm.
At that age as a freshman, my mentality was offense, was scoring. And I can recall my defense was pathetic. And Coach Center really was patient, but he was, as you know, intense.
Right.
And he used to challenge me every day. And he used to just preach to me about the importance of bringing that intensity, that aggressiveness to the defensive side of the ball. And, it took a while to pick up. And I really credit Coach Center because, he really instilled in me that confidence I needed, so that when I went up to, the varsity, the second half of my sophomore year, we had plenty of guys that could score. I mean, really. And so I kind of embraced and took ownership of that defensive side. And I just loved getting after it. And so I really look back and I'm so thankful for Coach Center for being patient with me,
Mm-hmm.
and also for challenging me, because I needed it. I needed that push. And I think he knew I needed it. And I can recall sometimes being on the bench, and before he was getting ready to put me in, and he'd be like in my face saying, Are you going to go in there and hit the boards? Are you going to go in there? You going to go, like in my face.
Yeah.
But that's what I needed.
Yeah.
So I owe a lot to him for sure.
Well, I just remember, the wristband and looked like you had like 3 or 4 pieces of gum in your mouth, and then just the fire and the intensity, and I could tell, like, on defensive end, I mean, how you were on defense. And I think I told Fergie that he didn't have to worry about playing defense because you were guarding all 5 players on the court.
Well, and again, I think a lot of it was Coach Center because I sort of embraced that, and I don't know, it was just I had all that energy. I came from soccer where I basically stood the whole game.
Right.
So it was a natural progression. But certainly my junior and senior year, just played with phenomenal athletes. My brother, John Deeds, Dan Fleming, Cameron, Jay Scavo, Joe Moon. I mean, all those guys. Even my sophomore year, the half of the season playing, I can recall like playing against Dave Woolprice and Paul Mentor and Tim Tedeschi.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn real quick. You go down, try to drive through the lane, Tim Tedeschi, these guys they were hosses.
Yeah.
And so you learn real quick, but that was great experience. I appreciate the opportunity that Coach Sander gave me, but certainly my junior and senior year, I always thought Coach Sander was a brilliant coach in many ways because, not all talented teams achieve success.
Right.
He really kept us grounded and focused. He really designed plays that would capitalize on our strengths. If it was getting Fergie out or setting the pick down below for Ronnie where he'd have an easy basket. And I think one of Coach Sanders' biggest attributes, which probably went overlooked, was his ability to change schemes. Certainly at halftime, but throughout the game. And one game in particular, my senior year, playing Oak Hills at home, I think we were both tied for the league at that point. Whoever won certainly would have a huge advantage winning the league. And they came out, we started the game in a defensive scheme we've never seen before. And so it kind of threw us off our rhythm. They basically let Tony Dunaway alone on the top of the key. And kudos to Tony because he drained 3 or 4 shots in a row.
Yep.
And forced Oak Hills out of that scheme, one we were familiar with. So we were kind of getting their flow. But I remember at halftime, Coach Sanders said, guys, we're coming out in a 1-3-1 zone. And keep in mind, throughout the season, I would say probably 80% of our play was man-to-man. Maybe 15% was a 2-3 zone. So this was, maybe 5% of the time we played a 1-3-1 zone. But I'll never forget when we started that second half in Oak Hills, they were totally confused. We got some turnovers quickly, some scores, the momentum certainly, and obviously in that setting with our fans, I mean, they were playing catch up the whole second half. That specifically, I attribute it to Coach Sander. He did a great job.
Yeah. How awesome were those games, though? I mean, the Turpin games, the Oak Hills games, the McNick games. I mean, packed, and some of them were sold out. I mean, just how exciting was that to play in?
It was, and it's like everywhere we went. I mean, we could have went to Marymount or Norwood. They wanted to see, they knew how good we were.
Yeah.
And I just remember, and then the fans, if it was Mount Healthy, or they wanted to beat us so bad. So everywhere we went, we were used to that, but we kind of thrived on that. I think all of us had such a high level of confidence in our ability to perform, and really the core group, with Frank and Fergie and Tony and Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we worked so well together as a team, and we believed in each other. But those great games were great. The pep rallies, the support from the students, teachers, administrators. I recall my senior year, which is, I've never experienced this before, but, the community got caught up in things. And I can remember driving around town and, there'd be a gas station with a sign out there or a pony keg, and it would have Go Redskins with the players' names on it. That doesn't happen.
No.
I mean, that was incredible. And like you said, when we would go to the games and warm-ups, the stands were packed.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Joe,
They had the fanatic section with the
well,
towels, and
I was just getting ready to say that there it is right there. But the
that's it.
yeah,
That, yeah,
and the other thing I remember too is the theme song. Another one bites the dust. I remember hearing
Yeah.
that song all the
oh, yeah.
time. And the other thing I too remember about the stands is the stands would shake. I mean, they would literally shake when you're and
Yeah.
people jumping up and down. I mean, it what you talk about dripping sweat. I mean, as
You
as a
know, what,
fan, and I one of the things that I kind of want to bring up too. We talked to Fergie and Coach Sanders about too was I was just devastated when you guys lost to Moeller and Byron Larkin. And
yeah,
I remember taking a trip, like you said, the community. I remember the buses going up to Oxford to go watch you guys play. I remember sitting at Anderson Middle School waiting to go up to that game, and just just that whole experience. Talk a little bit about that and what your recall of, that unfortunate loss to Moeller and Byron Larkin.
yeah. I mean, that's sports. I'd like to have that game over again for sure. I know Fergie got in foul trouble. I don't think Frank was really feeling that
Right.
well.
Yeah.
It was a close game to the end, but I think what people forget about, I think the game before that when we beat Taft, I think a lot of people outside of Anderson thought we wouldn't be able to get by them. I actually thought Taft was a much better team than Moeller.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that happens in sports. After we beat Taft, I think our confidence certainly rose to a new level. And again, I think with Frank not feeling well and Fergie got in some foul trouble, and I think we lost by a point or two.
Hmm.
But I always think back, I know it's but if we could have beaten Moeller, you never know what would have happened beyond that. But
I think you guys would have won it all.
Yeah,
That's just
I
my
agree.
my opinion
No.
on that one. You guys were hands down one of the greatest basketball teams in Anderson High School history that I got to witness. There could have been other ones before that, but that was just. Did you ever think that, like I know Kedge Sanders right after that season, I think that he left to go to Memphis, I believe.
yes.
Were you surprised at that he left to go there, or did you kind of expect that he was going to do something like that?
I don't really know if I had a thought either way. I mean, I know that the class behind us, they were probably disappointed. They kind
Yeah,
of grew up and
yeah.
Right.
and they embraced Coach Sanders. And I don't know I forget who took over
Gordon, Terry
after
Gordon.
Coach Sanders.
Yeah, it was Terry Gordon.
He was just there for 1 year.
1 year. Well,
Okay.
that kind of affected us too, because Steve and I were freshmen and sophomores, so we were
Oh
getting
yeah.
that too. So, but yeah, so I was just kind of disappointed we didn't get to have him or Coach Center.
Right, exactly. So I think it probably, because that class behind us, I know like with Julio and Kevin Dostal and Burdick, I mean,
Yeah.
they had talented players. We used to battle them in practice every day.
Yep.
But it would be hard having a new coach come in, a new system. So, but it was disappointing for all of us. I think that Coach Sander, certainly we all felt like, what if we could have
Yep.
gotten past Mueller, and if I could have one game over, I'd like to. That would be for sure.
Well, as Danny said, how we all felt just like crushed, like, we just lost our dog, when you guys lost. And I told Fergie this last week, I don't think there's anybody that was more crushed than my dad, because I think he called off work the next 2 days because he was so upset that you guys lost, because he was such a big fan of yours individually, but obviously your team as well.
Well, and speaking of your dad, I have a story. I have never told this before, but it's quite interesting. And it was started my junior year, and I think there was a period where I was having trouble. I don't know. I wasn't making a whole lot of free throws. And I remember your dad, it was after a practice or something, and he'd say, look, when you get to the free throw line, look over, I'll give you the thumbs up. And then that's going to help you concentrate. And Steve, it was so funny because now the second half of our games, we were always going down to the court where your dad would stand.
Right.
And so I would go to the free throw line and I would just glance over, and of course I would see your dad doing it.
I
And this
love
this
it.
is a true story. A true story. I started making free throws. And that was the ironic thing about this. And so your dad would throw his arms up, and a lot of times he would squat down.
Right.
And he would, any way he could do this. And he knew I would give him a quick glance, and boy, he would jump up. And so we had that covered at home. But as you know, when we would go to away games, a lot of those areas where you couldn't stand.
Right.
And so it was funny because, I always kind of knew where your dad was at in the stands, like if we were playing away.
Yep.
And boy, he would be like stretched out, whatever he could do to make sure that, because in his mind, it was those thumbs
I love
after the
it.
game.
I love it.
So, and that happened my junior year, probably midway through and throughout my senior year. And
Wow.
nobody, I never told anyone.
Wow.
But
That's a great story.
it was something just between your dad and myself, and boy, we both got a kick out of it. So pretty special.
That's awesome.
Hey,
No, I love to hear that.
Joe, I just on a flip side of that, just for how special his dad is to me too, is that I didn't really. I mean, I played the same year Steve did, but I didn't really play that much. But I'll never forget this. I was ready to quit, and his dad came up to me and said, "You better not." He kind of talked me down. He said, "You're going to regret it for the." And ironically, I think 2 weeks later, I started my only game, and it was against Turpin.
Really?
Yeah, and I almost quit because I was just I don't know. I just just had that that attitude or whatever you want to call it, and I will never forget him pulling me off to the side and saying, "Listen, if you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, don't do it. Just be there for your team." And then ironically, I start against Turpin High School. I mean, that's something like you had. That's how awesome Mr. Ellis was.
Oh yeah, and you respected him. He was so involved in the booster club, and I mean, it was just great. But that was kind of a special moment. Nobody knew that was going on. Obviously, if Coach Sander ever found out, it wouldn't be good. But it was just that quick split second we made eye contact.
Yes.
And but you said earlier, Steve, that your dad is the same age that you are now when I was a senior.
Right. This very minute. Yep.
God.
Hard to believe.
It is. Well, that is incredible. Next year, believe it or not, will be my 40th high school reunion.
Wow.
I know. So you guys enjoy it while you're young.
Yeah, we're right behind you.
Yeah, we're not too far from you, Joe. We're not too far.
Yeah, but Steve, your dad was awesome. Great guy for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
I appreciate you saying that. He's been gone since '97, and nothing makes me feel better than to hear stories like that. So I really appreciate you saying that, Joe.
Yes.
So let's jump over to baseball, which you excelled at as well, and had a great career. And I think you were all state in that as well, and you ended up going on to play in college. So talk about playing at Anderson, especially back then when there's no home run fence, and how well you did hitting back then in high school.
Baseball, we never had, if you looked at the wins and losses, we never had, we were never successful as like soccer or basketball, but played with some great guys, Mark Hamilton, Jeff Harris, Dean Tidball, Donnie Datin. I mean, they were great guys. We had so much fun. We never, had a lot of success. I think the highlight of my high school career in baseball was my sophomore year. And for some reason, they had what they called a best of the East baseball tournament, where it was McNick, Turpin, and Anderson, and we clearly were the underdogs. But that year we won it, and I remember Sam Tilford was pitching, and he got the MVP. So Sam, I remember that great job. It was wonderful, but that was kind of a highlight of my baseball career in high school. So.
Well, you played first, and I think my brother Brad was a shortstop then.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because him and Sam, I think when Sam pitched, that's right, Brad. That's right. But that was because so Brad would know. He would know about one of the best of the East that year.
Yep. Very cool.
So, talk a little bit. I mean, that's kind of crazy, that you were so good in all three sports. And what was that recruiting wise like for you were you getting looks at soccer? Were you getting looks at basketball? Were you getting and how did you decide ultimately to choose baseball?
Well, and I think back then, I mean, I think I knew which one I wanted. Coach Sander would talk to me and he would, say there were some colleges. I actually got letters. I know there was a college out in Sheridan, Wyoming. One day I get a letter, we're going to give you a 4-year full ride scholarship. I'm like, Sheridan, Wyoming, for basketball. And then like for soccer, I remember I got letters from Indiana University to play soccer.
Oh, wow.
Now they weren't scout, they were just like the initial letter,
Right.
as far as fill this out, whatever. But I mean, I knew back then that really baseball would be the vehicle taking the next step. So it was easy for me. And with baseball, certainly when I was out of high school or during the summer months, I was fortunate to play in the Midland Redskins organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that was phenomenal because I mentioned in high school, I played with a lot of great guys, had a lot of fun. Well, once that was over, you quickly transitioned to the Midland teams, which, I mean, that was people from all over the city.
Right.
I know my junior year playing with Jimmy Larrix and Barry Larkin and Todd Benzinger played. He was a year older than us.
Mm-hmm.
And then my senior year, again, playing with Jimmy and Barry, it was great. I mean, we would travel to Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky. We played, in fact, both years we played in the Connie Mack World Series out in Farmington, New Mexico. So it was a great experience. Wow. Yeah. And so I knew baseball. And so I had a scholarship to a junior college in Oklahoma. And my plans were to go there for a year and then transfer to Oklahoma State. It was kind of like a feeder to Oklahoma State.
Right.
And so that was an experience. My folks took me out there and I didn't really fit in. It was a small school, bunch of cowboys.
Yeah.
Just it didn't really fit out. So a funny story, I wrote Jimmy Larrix a letter. He was going to school in a junior college in Georgia. And I was like, Jimmy, I don't think, I don't think I'm going to last much longer here. You guys need a first baseman. So I sent my letter. Literally the next day I go to the mailbox, there's a letter from Jimmy.
Yeah.
And so ironic because I'm reading the letter and he's like, I don't really like it here. Do you guys need a third baseman?
No way.
Okay.
So long story short, I called Jimmy a few days later. Georgia won out. And and after the holidays in January of '83, I went down to Middle Georgia with Jimmy. And looking back, that was the best decision. One of them I made in my life.
Yeah.
There was no guarantee I had to try out, but that team had a fantastic program, a lot of talented players. In fact, my freshman and sophomore year, we played in the World Series out in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Wow.
So great experience for sure.
Well, that's all. And then how did you progress to then South Carolina? How did you get there? How did that all work out?
Well, then after my 2 years at Middle Georgia, Jimmy was going on to the University of Kentucky, and he was trying to get me to follow him there. But I love the South, the weather. Obviously, when you play baseball, you like that type of climate. And I had a chance to go to South Carolina on a recruiting trip. And it's one of those situations. I remember I got in late Friday night, and that Saturday I had an afternoon game against Old Dominion, and they probably had 4,000 people in the stands, and facilities were phenomenal. So I knew right then where I wanted to go, and it worked out. I had a scholarship to continue on to South Carolina.
Wow.
And so my junior year, again, there was a lot of JUCO transfer that came in, a lot of great guys. That year, we go to the College World Series. Mm-hmm. So if you trace things back to my junior year with the Midland Redskins, those 2 years going to Farmington, New Mexico, playing in Nationals, 2 years of JUCO and Grand Junction, and then my junior year at South Carolina going to
That's
Omaha.
Incredible.
So that was 5 years in a row.
Wow.
Which was an incredible experience. And, and so I had a really good year that year. And, no phone call. Thought for sure that maybe I would have been drafted.
Right.
So I just went back my senior year, and that was kind of the first year I experienced some nagging injuries. That I probably missed 3 weeks of the season. We lost to the University of Miami down there in the regional tournament, and so I thought that was it. I came home. I only had 2 classes left to graduate, which I was getting enrolled in the fall semester, but I get home a few days later. I get a phone call from the Braves.
Wow.
Being drafted. So unexpected. So 3 days later, I had to report Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Wow.
And
great.
that was an experience because, all through high school and college, you get to play in those team, hang out with your buddies, you got friends, and all of a sudden you're thrown in an environment where, you have people being traded, released.
Yeah.
Out there in that Pioneer League, I think our average bus ride was 10 hours.
Oh,
We played every night at 7:30. So we play like Billings, the Reds organization,
Yeah.
Great Falls, Montana, which was Dodgers, Medicine Hat, Canada, which was the Blue Jays.
Wow.
Helena, Montana was Brewers, and they had a Salt Lake team, which was an independent, but every night at 7:30. So, if we were leaving after a home stand and say we were going to Medicine Hat, it was 14-hour bus ride.
Oh.
And so
Oh.
you get in there, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, have an hour in the room, the bus left for the field to go take BP and batting. It was just brutal,
Oh.
brutal.
wow. So, well, I saw your stats, Joe, and you had a good, I think that first year there with Idaho Falls there. What was that experience like? How much tougher was that from playing at South Carolina as far as the competition?
Certainly you had some more lively arms pitching, but also at South Carolina, our competition, we would see that. I think it was a little more consistent. We had some guys that could bring it. A funny story in the minor leagues, we were playing Billings. It was the Reds organization. They had this guy that was probably 6'7" on the mound. And he could bring it. And I remember the guy, I was on the on deck circle, and the guy that was in front of me, this guy was just throwing gas. So he threw one, and umpire called it a strike. And the guy that on my team, it was so funny because he turned around, he said, "That sounded high." And I'm thinking, man, I got to go up there. That's what he said. But it was funny. But those guys were, had guys right out of high school. You had guys that were obviously my age, were like seniors in college. It was just a different environment because you really didn't get close to anyone. People were being released, traded. People were hoping that you would get hurt so that they would get playing time.
Yeah.
So, it was a totally different, but I'm glad I experienced it because it made me appreciate what I had in college and certainly in high school.
Yeah.
The team oriented stuff. So that was a good thing. But anyways, I came back and I rolled in South Carolina, and I only had 2 classes left.
Well,
after that.
At South Carolina, I know Steve and I were kind of talking before we went on air. Didn't you have the at one time have the record, the home run record and the RBI record at South Carolina at one time?
Yeah, that was my junior year.
Wow.
I do remember watching.
I remember watching
the
it.
College World Series. Yeah, I do remember that watching, and just exciting, saying, "Oh my God, there's a guy from Anderson," in this thing, and that was really cool for us too.
It was well, I shouldn't say funny, but I remember getting back from that, and that summer I had mono. The doctor actually assumed that when I was out there, I was just so tired, worn out, so I was basically out that summer. But that was a great experience because you walk out of the dugout and you see the ESPN cameras, and it was. And the minor leagues was great too because being a first base, and they always seem to have one of those beer wagons that sold draft beer, and right there by the fence.
You can
and
smell
so you're playing away games, and you had the hecklers out there, and so what we would do is, I mean, these guys were brutal. You could smell the fumes coming permeating from the beer wagon over there. So at times I'd tell the shortstop, the third baseman, hey, let this one fly over my head, during warmups. It would get their attention. It would hit the beer wagon or something. And
That's good.
that was pretty funny, but
Oh, that's good.
Well, Joe, let's get caught up because I know you talked about your class reunion coming up, but I know you ended up staying down south for the most part, but I know there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna watch this and want to get caught up with you. So tell us about what you're doing now and family and kids and all that, that so everybody can get up to date on you.
well, for the last 6 years, I've been over in Alabama. I have 3 daughters, all of which now are teenagers.
Nice.
That keeps me busy. I certainly enjoy watching them cheer and playing their sporting that they play on. They play basketball and softball. So that's great.
Right.
Spend as much time as I can with them, and recently been involved sort of helping a medical company launch. And part of that, I worked in Atlanta. I was there for 20 years and worked primarily in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. So, I've been fortunate. I mean, it was great. Once I got released from the Braves, I only had 2 classes left to graduate. And so I had an opportunity to try out with the Dodgers, but, at that point, it really wasn't a tough decision. I think it's like some of my friends who may have had another year or 2 of college, they tried and kept trying. It was a lot harder for them, but I was at the point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to hang up the cleats, and things worked out. I really have no regrets. But yeah, 3 girls. Not having sisters growing up, a
Right.
lot of this has been new, but we have a great relationship, and they're wonderful girls. So just
That's awesome.
grow up so quickly.
Yeah.
That's great. I have 2 teenage daughters myself, and going to the high school events, and I'm thinking I don't feel that old. That it felt like we were just there. So it's probably different. I kind of shake my head like it's probably a good thing they don't have that they didn't have the cell phones back then. And
Exactly. And there's a funny story. It's kind of off topic, but I thought I would share it with you. And that is, my daughters are really into cheerleading.
Yeah.
And so they would always try to, and they play sports, and they'd say, well, did you play? And so they would try to teach me how to cheerlead, not flips, but like the beat and stuff like that. So anyways, we're out visiting my mom out in Utah. And so she had some neighbors. And so the girls were cheerleading, and they wanted me to join in. And I'll never forget it. And the lady's like, oh, you used to cheerlead, Joe. I didn't know that. And I was like, no. And she's like, well, that's okay, because guys cheerlead. And so now I have to watch who I cheerlead in front.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. My girls try to egg me on.
yeah,
That's funny.
And so
Yeah.
I have to watch who I'm around, because then
that's
they think,
exactly
"Gosh,
right.
he was a cheerleader when he was in high school."
Is there any footage? Is there any footage of you doing the cheers? I'd like to see that.
No, and there never will be.
So Joe, 1991 is when they really were started gearing up with the Hall of Fame at Anderson, and you were in the first class to go in, rightfully so. Talk a little bit about that experience and how all that was for you, and how's that affected you then and now?
Well, from what I just was told it happened, the Hall of Fame, and I don't know if I've been back, to. I don't know if it's a separate, what it is exactly.
They didn't have a ceremony then?
No,
Okay.
no,
They
but
just
I
said
didn't.
you're in.
Well, somebody told me that they saw a picture of me or something, but I didn't really know what. The only thing that and I'll take this opportunity to shout out to Colleen McMahon, because
Yeah.
we were in the same class.
Right.
She was a wonderful athlete, so talented, just a great person, and I think she was in it too as well, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yep.
So, but I don't really know if it's. I mean, what is it like? Sort of just a a plaque or something, or?
Yeah, they've got the people that are in the Hall of Fame, like yourself, and then they've got like a one step lower, which would be like the Hall of Champions, and
Oh,
then they've
okay.
got a whole nother section of players that have their jerseys that are retired. So it's kind of like three different areas, and
Oh, I
it's pretty,
see.
yeah, it's pretty neat to look at. But if anybody wants to see or know about you, Joe, just so you know that your picture is still up at La Rosa's.
Yes.
Remember when they used to do that, the Buddy La Rosa's
Oh,
Player of the Week,
yes.
and
Yes.
somebody would like do a drawing of
Yes.
you and Coach Sanders, and it's still up there when you first walk in La Rosa's.
Well, that was a neat experience for that ceremony.
For La Rosa's Hall of Fame.
Yes. Yeah, that was, I remember that. It was a great opportunity for, my brothers and my folks came in, and I think that happened in 2002.
Okay.
But that was a great experience.
That's
And I didn't realize, I guess once I left Cincinnati, I kind of stayed in the South, and I didn't realize the magnitude of that whole thing with the La Rosas thing.
right.
It's big.
It is. And so when I got the phone call and I thought, well, what is this? But I kind of looked into it, and then the more I learned, I was like really impressed with the people and how, the organization and all that. So it was a great honor for sure.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
very, very deserving of that too. So we're gonna try. I know we've taken a lot of your time. We're gonna try to wrap it up like we always do with some questions that we ask. And one of the things is like maybe your favorite memory as a high school player, maybe in college, and then also maybe your favorite either coach or teacher.
Oh gosh. A high school, I think, probably a few basketball games that really stood out. My senior year, early on, when we went to Mount Healthy
Yep.
at their place, we were, I think, one in the city, and they were ranked third. And we really blew them away. And
Yep.
I think that helped elevate the confidence in our team. I mean, we beat them bad.
Yeah.
Nobody was expecting it. And then also that Oak Hills game, my senior
yeah.
year at home, just the enthusiasm, the support from the community. I mean, it's next year, it's gonna be 40 years, and I would be hard pressed to think that, I don't know how successful the teams have been, but I can't imagine any of the teams ever, copying what we had back in '82, as far as the community support,
No way.
enthusiasm.
It was special.
Yeah.
It was. And we had your dad, Steve, which was awesome too. And I hope he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well,
I should,
He is in the Hall of
he
Fame.
should be there. So
yeah, they have a special section for a Hall of Fame for
Distinguished
service.
Oh, service.
The distinguished or it's distinguished service or something like that, and him and Mom are in the Hall of Fame along with remember Bob Andrews.
oh yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
it's people like that are in there. It's really cool. I appreciate you saying that. That's
Well deserved for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What about college? Favorite moment in college?
College. Well, I think probably my sophomore year playing in the Junior College World Series out in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
We were playing Arizona, and in one game, I mean, this is kind of a personal thing. One game, I had 3 home runs and a double.
nice.
Wow.
So 11 RBIs.
Oh,
And so,
dang.
yeah, that was, that was a game I'll always remember.
Wow.
That's when Jimmy and I played together. So that was fun.
Rightfully so.
Or-
And then what about, you got a favorite teacher or coach in high school or college or any
Well, coaches, again, Coach Sander, Coach Center, great job. They were just really outstanding coaches. Teacher wise, I always really enjoyed Mrs. Coleman.
Yep.
yes.
I remember I had a typing class with her. I couldn't type at all, but she was so patient with me. And, it was one of those, but I mean, really, guys, all the teachers, all the people there, I mean, they were all so supportive. And I mean, those were some of the best years of my life at Anderson. And And again, I wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity. It's been great catching up with you, and certainly appreciate all the time and effort you've been putting into this with everyone you've interviewed.
We really appreciate it, Joe. We were so excited to get a hold of you. Like I said, for Steve and I having back to back of Fergie and you is, Steve and I got off off this interview. We had goosebumps and we just couldn't stop talking about it. So we appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy, and it's just been awesome to talk to you tonight, man. It's just brought some great memories, and I know everybody in Anderson's just going to absolutely love this and hear from you, and hopefully you'll get to catch up with everybody at your reunion.
Oh yeah, and future people you interview that maybe I've been associated with, please give them my best. But I'm certainly looking forward and plan on attending the 40th reunion next year. So I look forward to that.
All right, that is great.
And tell Frank I said hello, and tell Coach Center and anyone else, Steve.
Absolutely will.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here for this weekend up, Anderson. So for Steve Ellis, Joe Datin, and myself, Dan Albers, we'll catch you next week on This Week in Anderson. Have a good night, everybody.